think. But it wasn't really my thing when it was like just the basics that I had to teach. I'm more into like teaching concepts and ideas and stuff like that. So it didn't really click with me, the teaching kids the basics. You gotta be like the right person for that, and I'm not the right person for it. By the way, are you right or left-handed?
I am right-handed, but
You do a lot of stuff left. Yeah, I've noticed that. Like when you play, you left-handed.
You do that too, but
yeah.
You don't embrace it. Like.
I like it. For me, it depends on what I play, and like the feel of it. When I really just want to, dig into the hi-hat. But if it's like more lighter stuff and more like flowing, then I can do that with the left hand. So it depends a bit on the nature of the tune. There are some Vola songs where I actually have to like reach over to the china with the left hand, while like the left hand goes for the snare too, but the right hand is on the stack, like doing the main thing, and the china is just like following the guitar together with the snare.
Speaking of stacks, you
yeah.
use like the most of stacks I've ever seen.
Yeah. Well,
what was your decision-making process?
Yeah, I love Terry Bozzio, so I watched a lot of stuff with him. Then I just wanted to like create my own stacks, but I wanted to have like this trashy vibe. I had saved all my broken cymbals throughout the years, and so I just put them together, tried different things. So at first I had like 5 different stacks, I think, and then I just scaled it down, removed the unnecessary stuff, and now I'm down to 3 stacks that work really well. It doesn't really matter how broken they are or how whole they are. You get more of the sound out of the air between the cymbals and how thick the cymbals are. So I try to work more with that, which means that, they can have all kinds of crazy cracks and chunks falling off, but it doesn't really like change the sound too much with the sounds. Experiment with how tight they are.
Yeah.
So the one on my left side, the smallest stack, is like super tight, just to get that, staccato, like just the attack. I have this middle stack that I actually adjust depending on the song. Sometimes I have it really loose because I want the more washy feel, and sometimes I tighten it more to have it more like, more staccato too. But because of the nature of like the air between the cymbals, it will always have some sort of sustain, which is different from the smaller stack. Yeah. And my larger stack is made of I don't think you know the East chinas, but the Wuhan chinas. Yeah. They have like this really deep bottom. And I like to work that sort of china. I think it's maybe 16, and a slightly larger crash upside down on top of it. So there's a lot of air between those 2 cymbals, and that's exactly. So that's kind of like a bit of a smaller china, but still like the sustain sounds pretty huge. And the thing with those stacks is when you just tap on them and listen to them acoustically, they sound really bad, like a lot of junk. But in context and when you play them, they actually sound great. So just experiment with crazy ideas. Just try all kinds of crazy stuff, and most of the time it won't work. Then you've tried it, it doesn't work, you try something else. You do that until you find whatever works.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Coming up next,
I'm working on a project with a guy called Dino Medanhodzik from Stockholm. He's also a producer. He's done a lot of metal stuff and a lot of pop stuff. He's doing that really, really well. He's a crazy guitar player. He's the one that I've done the test track and the Meshuggah covers. We're doing a project together. We've just now finished the instrumental version, so we're gonna add some vocals to it. We just gotta find the right vocalists, and we're gonna create a video and see where it goes. But yeah, that's like the biggest thing I'm working on. Other than that, I do a lot of session stuff for different musicians.
Our feature. We should talk about that.
Yeah, we should. And then after that, we start arranging it and see like how we're gonna connect the drums. Yeah, I like them low. yeah, yeah. I love like the whole thing about making music dynamic.
Yeah.
I think it just gives it more life. So I've always just tried to keep that, even when I record like metal stuff. Obviously, when I'm doing it for another band, they are the ones in charge, so they decide which way to go. But with this thing that I do with the guy Dino from Stockholm, we actually did the drum take, like one take all the way through and no editing whatsoever. So like even for the kick drum there are hits that are weaker and hits that are more powerful.
Yeah.
So we focused more on the take itself, and that just made everything so much more fun instead of like leaving stuff for editing later on. So that it's I think it's a good thing even when it comes to metal, unless it's like extreme metal where the kick drum is going really fast but yet needs to be heard, like then it's kind of hard to do without triggers. I mean the dynamics you can control, like there are amazing death metal drummers out there who have like perfect dynamics for the feet even at super high tempos, but for like the clarity of the sound to come through, most often triggers are needed, so that it just doesn't become this like muddy whoosh of kick drum hits, so that every hit can be heard. I think Derek Roddy like explained this so much better than I do. When it comes to other stuff, like more stuff where there's more air, it's more fun to leave it up to the drummer to control the dynamics than to fix it in the studio. I use Pearl eliminators. I've used them for many years now, and they still work perfectly.
Obviously.
Like very solid pedals. Nothing like super fancy about them. They just work exactly like I want them to work.
Yeah, it's all just preference when it comes to pedals.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Just
whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. And the sticks, I actually use the 5Bs, but with the nylon tip. So this is awesome to have the 5Bs. The snare is a Mapex snare. It's maple. It was the first snare that I bought, like just the snare itself, and I got it for a like very cheap price. They had like this special price on the music store, but it's more up to the heads and the tuning when it comes to the snare, because it just has this nice character and like yeah, that's awesome, but the heads, that's what makes it like pop, you know.
What heads do you use?
Evans
Okay.
drum heads. For the snare specifically, I have the it's called something more, but yeah, the HD dry. That head specifically works really well with the snare, because I can get like the right sustain. It's pretty solid to tune, and it just has this awesome crack, you know.
Yeah.
It just like punches you. It's Pearl Masters limited edition 15th anniversary, when they celebrated like 50 years. They made that kit, so it's a bit more rare, and I got it like already used, so I bought it from a guy, and that's a pretty awesome kit. I think it has a very unique character. The negative part about it is that it doesn't work in all scenarios. because it is such a unique character. That goes mostly for the kick drum. But when it works really well, actually.
What do you
The mics are very, very basic. SM57 for snare, toms and kick, which is a bit unusual for the kick. For the toms, yeah, sure, but not as unusual as for the kick. But it works. You just don't get it like all the low end that you want when you start to deal with. But like for what I use it for, it works perfectly. And for the overheads, I use CM3 overheads. They're like very affordable, but they're still good quality there. And that's what I started out with. I've added 2 room mics. One is currently an SM58 in the room. That I'll change it as soon as I find something good to use. And the other thing that I use is the Zoom Q3 HD. So whenever I do my videos, I place it underneath me. It gives it that extra bit of presence and attack that it needs. So I just like import the audio and sync it up with the rest of the recording, and then use the video for the foot cam in my videos. The cymbals, it was a lot about feeling comfortable with the crash specifically, because I always have played music where like I use the crash a lot, not just to mark like transitions, but I play beats with it. So I really didn't want to have to reach over the toms and have it somewhere far away, and that spawned the idea of firstly lowering the crash, bring it closer to me, and having it like just in front of me, so I don't have to like reach. But that created a problem with the toms, and then I started thinking like minimalistically. Well, like what do I really need? Do I really need those toms, or could I manage with just the floor tom? So I tried without the toms, and it worked great. I could bring the cymbals closer and like have them very comfortable in front of me, and still have a floor tom. But then I started miss like that extra punch that you get out of 2 toms, you know. Exactly. I added the left tom, and I started just like experimenting with different patterns, like what can I do? When I had 5 stacks, I had stacks like above the left tom as well. So I like did a lot of stuff over here, but then that felt weird to like have to
reach.
Yeah. So I removed 2 of the stacks. I brought things like even closer. So now I can have like the snare really comfortably in front of me without having to worry about the toms as well. The hi-hat can come in close. I can have the pedals exactly where I want them, and then move in the left tom just where I want it. And now I don't have to like turn to hit it. I can just move out my arms and I have it right there. And since oftentimes I play very much on instinct and emotion, so like just the thing, like you can just smash down on both toms with both hands. It feels like very primitive. You don't have to worry about where it lands. You can just hit down on each side with the sticks, and you get this massive sound with both toms. That
just feels great.
Yeah, it just feels great, and it works with the music. And then I have like slightly different. The one is 14, the one is 16. I used to have the bigger one on my left side and the 14-inch on my right side. But then after a Meshuggah song, it was impossible to play the right pattern with the toms that way.
Yeah.
So I just switched them over. So I have the 14 on my right side and the 16 on my left side. I can create pretty cool melodies with that. The thing with creating melodies, oftentimes you need to surprise yourself. Like what happens if I do this? How does it sound if I just like do some kind of pattern, not thinking about the melody that I get? Then you start to hear like different ways you could go, and you surprise yourself with the melodies. You don't have them planned out; they just like show up. And then once you have those down, you can just like pick a path. If I want something that sounds like this or like that, I can, for example, kick off with the left hand on the left tom first, and then go over to the right tom, or the other way around. It just creates like these different kind of like ladders or transitions into other things. It just opens up so many new possibilities and so many new creative ways to take. It's easy to get very comfortable with your setup and then you know exactly what you get. You got the high tom, the middle tom, the low tom. To me, it feels too locked down to like this one path. Yeah. And
your old setup, like
oh, you do?
The big tom on the left
Yeah.
side and the smaller on the
Yeah.
right side.
Cool. How does it feel, do you think?
Yeah, it feels weird.
Yeah.
I normally don't reach out with my with my right arm to
Yeah.
my left tom.
Yeah.
So everything
Yeah.
that I want to play on the tom has
Yeah.
to be left.
Yeah, exactly.
Every phrase with that tom
Yeah.
has to be left. It's a challenge.
It's
I
a
like it.
challenge, and the hardest thing is to take those very basic patterns, you know, when we just go down the size, 12, 14, 16,
Yeah.
like do that traditional fill, but between the toms on each side. It is possible, and you can get it very loose and very nice, but it is hard. It is very, very hard to do. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, all those like simple songs that you already know, you almost feel bored when you want to play something exciting and you get to those songs. Those songs all of a sudden become a completely new challenge because you have to find a new way to do those traditional easy things, you could call them. So that's also one thing, like to revisit things that you've already finished, that you've already done, but with this new setup, and just see what happens. You can spawn some new ideas from that. You can either like, if let's say you got 4 consecutive hits, you can either go like right tom, left tom, right tom, left tom, right tom, left tom, left tom, left tom, on right, and then both hands on the left tom. Exactly.
Yeah.
Also another thing that shows up then, from the right tom to the snare, left tom. You also have the hi-hat in between, and if you have other things, whatever it could be, that also like creates really cool ways. You don't have to go all the way around. You could like start from the snare to the hi-hat to the left tom, right tom to the snare, hi-hat, snare, right tom, all kinds of different ways.
Yeah.
It just like creates all those new ideas,
Yeah.
and not having to rely on the traditional. Not that it's wrong with the traditional stuff. It's more creatively challenging to arrange it with those different toms, I think. It's jam